my internet go out, I log back in, log in, just because I'm mooching off the hotel internet right outside the building.
No problem.
So we're live. Welcome everyone to the Nothing But Nuggets podcast with your boy Antoine Campbell, the REI giver. Today I got a special giver on the show, all the way from Arizona. My guy Pace Morby. Pace is crushing the scene. He just came out of nowhere and just started providing nothing but content. He specializes in subject to. He does a lot of owner financing. He builds mobile home communities. He used to be a general contractor. Or you still is a GC?
No, I got rid of my license because I didn't want to pay for the general liability or workman's comp insurance anymore. So we just got rid of my license. We just manage our guys directly now.
That's awesome. So he's an awesome guy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Pace to the show. Go ahead, Pace, introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are.
So, hey guys, my name again is Pace Morby. You can look at my Instagram, Pace Morby. I have been posting on Instagram for 8 years. When Instagram first came out, it was like the TikTok craze. Everybody was talking about it. And I was like, what is this stupid Instagram thing, you know? And I realized really quickly, because back at that time, I was just a contractor. I had about 100 employees. But I realized very quickly that when I was posting before and after photos of my construction work, I would start getting a lot more calls from customers, right? So what happened is, Antoine, I don't know if do you guys have Open Door where you're at? The iBuyer?
I don't think so. It's a bunch of big box wholesalers out here, but I don't think it's no Open Doors or none of that out here.
Okay, so I landed a contract with Open Door where I was their main contractor for a number of years. I helped them open their Dallas market, their Vegas market, etc. And what happened is the way they found me is my Instagram. So if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, I'm super active on there. I'm kind of like the Gary Vee model where I document basically everything I'm doing all day long. And I've been absolutely consistent at doing it for 8 years to a point where my goal is to make you unfollow me if you don't like me. I want you to unfollow me. I only want people following me who like me. So I look at my little algorithm and I see how many people follow me, and then I watch how many people unfollow me, and I'm like, perfect. That means I'm doing a good job producing enough content.
You know, it's crazy. I'm the same exact way. I wake up every morning, check and see who deleted me or unfollowed me. I'm like, you're an idiot. You're missing out on a whole lot. But oh well.
Well, that was the cool thing. So like Steve Trang, this is kind of where people started finding out about me, is I've been in wholesale fixing and flipping for years. We've done close to about 7,000 renovations. But obviously those were not all my renovations. I wasn't the owner. I was the contractor on them. And Steve Trang bumps into me because somebody found me on Instagram. And I became Steve Trang's contractor for his fix and flips. So then Steve Trang and I got to know each other a couple years ago, and he was like, dude, you're doing wholesale and construction? I go, yeah, I do about 10 wholesale deals a month. And then he had me on his show, right? He had me on his show probably a year and a half ago, and all of a sudden people are like, dude, you came out of nowhere. I'm like, I mean, I've been doing deals. I've been doing all this stuff for years. It's just that people didn't find out about me until Steve Trang put me on. So I appreciate you, Antoine, bringing me on here. I look up to you. We were just talking before the show went live about how you have changed my business directly, like absolutely impacted my business. My partner, Cody Barton, took one of your courses on VA training and like how to set up and do all this stuff with VAs. Bro, you probably make me an extra $10,000, $15,000 a month in my business easily because of that training.
I appreciate it, man. And you know what's crazy? So many people, you know, I know so many other people that took the training and went on and created their own company, and I'm proud to be a person that helped you guys get to that level.
Yeah, you're absolutely amazing. My partner Cody talks about you and what he's learned from you like probably weekly, and so he'll say stuff like, "Oh, well, Antoine says to do it this way, and Antoine says to do it that way." I go, "If that's what he says, then follow him." Because I saw you in Houston. This is where we knew each other. I saw you in Houston at Elizabeth's event, and I was like, "This was my favorite speaker at the entire event." So speaking of events, I look forward to your drip event. You've got to put that all together. I'm sure you're going to do it this year.
Yeah, we still wait. As far as I know, the drip event is still happening this year. We're just waiting on Mr. Governor Lawyer Hogan to get itself together to figure out when they're going to allow crowds of 100 more to meet together.
Freaking love it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know Jamil's looking forward to it as well. So, dude, appreciate you so much. So for me, just so people know what kind of questions to ask, if you guys have questions, what I'm actively doing right now is I'm a guy that goes to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I wake up at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. You guys will see me on my Instagram posting at 2 o'clock in the morning almost every single day. I'm up. I'm at it. What I do is I research, I read, I do all the things I need to do. And then at 5 a.m., I'm out the door. And I'm out visiting my projects. I'm going out managing my sales team. Right now we've got 60 homes or so that we're building, mobile home community. We've got we're probably averaging somewhere between 10 to 15 wholesale deals a month. And then I do another 10 to 12 creative financing deals per month out of my wholesale leads, because we know how to take our wholesale leads and convert them into subject to or other creative financing stuff, right? So I do that. And then we do probably 2 to 4 flips a week. Either people sending us deals that they can't wholesale, or people, or out of our wholesale leads, we'll kind of pick and choose what we want to fix and flip.
That's awesome, man. So let's go all the way back. Let's rewind this back, right?
All right.
Because I like to figure out what's the difference between you and everybody else. How in the world did you get started into real estate? I understand you was a GC. Was that the transition? You been a GC and seeing an opportunity, or you was a GC to complement you doing real estate?
Great question. So appreciate that. So my dad was a contractor. I come from a family of 12 children. My mom and dad have 12 kids. Yeah. I'm number 3 out of 12 kids. I have 8 sisters. And so my dad, even when he had a corporate job, my dad was doing construction on the side to pay for the eggs, the milk, and the bread. And I mean, imagine how much money it takes to take care of 14 people in a house, right?
Man, that's a lot of money.
Right. So, I mean, I am 37. My dad still has kids living at the house.
Wow.
Right. So I grew up in that world. I grew up with a father that worked his guts out. And then when I was 8, 9 years old, my dad would take me on job sites at 8, 9. I was 8 or 9 years old on Saturdays and Sundays. I was there taping down baseboards and, installing toilets and doing all those kind of things, making like $2 an hour working for my dad. Right. And so I just learned to love working. In fact, I have a hard time. Like, I can't sit still. I want to stand. I want to be doing something all the time. So anyway, I got into construction in my early 20s. I built a construction company, and I did not understand real estate at all. And I have students in my subject to course that are 21 years old learning creative financing. Antoine, what would you do to go back to 21 years old learning what you know now?
I empty out my accounts and give everything I know to go back to 21.
Crazy, right?
And I'm 31.
Bro, it's crazy. Like, me looking at these kids coming up, I'm like, you have access to information and all this stuff and everybody helping. Like what you're doing right now on this podcast, like this stuff didn't exist when I was 21. Not at all.
Right.
So anyway, built a construction company. And I started doing work for big companies like Blackstone. They came in Arizona. They spent a ton of money buying a buy and hold portfolio. And then I started doing work for the We Buy Ugly Houses people. You ever heard of, the We Buy Ugly Houses?
Yeah, they around here. Yep, they on the back of the metro buses and stuff like that.
Right. So what happened is I had a lady who was a franchise owner. She was one of 20 here in Phoenix, and I was doing all her construction. And speaking of construction, I have guys in my attic right now spraying insulation because it's 120 degrees here in Phoenix. So my guys are adding extra foam insulation to my house. So you might hear them walking around. So this lady says, look, I'm ready to retire. I've never met somebody that works as hard as you, and I want to give you an opportunity. And I was like, what's that? And she says, I want to sell my business to you.
Wow.
So I jumped into wholesale, not even knowing what wholesale was. Here I am working as a contractor for all these wholesalers, and I have no idea what they're doing. I'm just thinking, okay, these guys are fix and flippers. I'm just doing all their construction, right? So her name's Bethany Willis. Shout out Bethany Willis. She's sitting on the beach in San Diego now. She retired to San Diego. And She sold me her franchise And my first month in wholesale, I didn't even know what an assignment fee was, and I took home $50,000 in my first month. And then from that point, I was like, how do I get rid of everything else I'm working on and focus entirely on wholesale?
Yeah. And let's talk about that, right? You touched on something that most people can't grasp the concept of, which is tunnel vision. So when I'm doing something, I'm only focusing on just that until I conquer it. Then I might open up the next whatever I want to do. So many people think that they can dabble within the industry, wholesaling or subject to it, whatever they're trying to do, and they think that they can do 10 other things. Talk about the importance of the tunnel vision getting you to where you are today.
Yeah, so it was great. So now every business I own to this day complements my other businesses, right? So I'm not going to go out and start an aerospace business and I also run real estate. Like, they have nothing to do with each other, right?
Right.
So what I did is I put a plan of action together, and I said, how do I build my wholesale business up so I can leave construction, right? I want to saddle the next horse before I jump off the existing horse.
Right.
So I said, I got to leave this and focus on wholesale because I realize this is where it's at. I watch other people, bro, they're like all over the place. They'll spend 2-3 hours on wholesale. Then they'll spend 2-3 hours over here. Then it's like it takes time and energy to really build a business, and people do not recognize that at all.
It does. I agree. I honestly agree. And so now, like, you conquer wholesaling, you're doing these creative things, and I'm assuming the creative things are what you're doing to stash away your retirement. This is something you're doing to kind of like one day, eventually, you're gonna have to hang up your cleats and walk away from being, Pace the badass wholesaler, and kind of like sit on that beach too in San Diego, California, to kind of relax. So let's talk about the way you're building your portfolio and why is it benefiting you in doing it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I got into creative financing, so when I bought the franchise, which I sold it, I'm not a franchise owner anymore, but the first year I was a franchise owner. So check this out, Antoine. I'll give you some insight into the We Buy the Houses guys. So we don't do any of our own marketing, right? We pay the corporation a check every month to do our marketing for us. So direct mail, billboards, radio, TV, which are basically the four most, in my opinion, ineffective marketing channels right now because of how expensive they are.
Right.
So I would give the corporation at the time when I first started, I'd give them $5,000 a month. And then in return for that, I would get phone calls, inbound phone calls. And those phone calls, the way you divide it out, for $5,000, I'd get about 20 calls. So think about that. I got 20 leads for $5,000.
That's a lot of money.
Right. So now check this out. Now, granted, these are inbound leads, so it's a little bit different, right? There are people calling and saying, hey, I got your letter, or hey, I saw your billboard, whatever. Like, they're ready. I'm not doing outreach. These are people calling me. Now, a year later, because of people like Brent Daniels and Max Maxwell, people like you, all these younger wholesalers were coming into the game, and they were increasing the cost of direct mail, increasing the cost of all these things. And they were actually, the way they were increasing the cost is because now more people are cold calling, more people are texting, and they're getting the deal before the homeowner would even open the mail. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what was happening is I was watching this, and I became like top 3. There's 1,100 franchises in the nation, and I was top 3 of the closers, like out of 1,100, right? So my conversion rate was really, really high. So by the end of my first year, the lead cost was no longer $400. The lead cost was $1,000 per call. So now I would give $5,000 to the corporation, and I would get 5 phone calls.
Wow.
Okay. So by that time, I was spending a lot more than $5,000. I was spending about $20,000 a month, and I would average 20 calls a month. For 20 grand, what could you do right now in your business, Antoine? Like 20
grand?
Yes.
For 20,000, I'm not even spending nowhere near 20,000. 20,000, man, I probably can 10x everything I'm doing.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Like that.
But remember, the We Buy Ugly Houses people, the franchise owners, they know nothing. They don't even know what the word KPI means. Like there's guys been in We Buy Ugly Houses for 10 years that if you ask them what KPI stand for, they couldn't answer the question.
So hold on, the people that franchise to you didn't know what that meant, or the franchisees?
Both.
Wow.
Bro, they don't. Their CRM is outdated. They don't know what Podio is. They don't know anything about wholesaling. It's amazing. So when you leave the franchise, it's like starting over from scratch. So here's what happened. My leads went up to $1,000 per phone call. Okay,
that's crazy.
Went up to $1,000 per phone call, and I'm only now for $20,000. I'm only getting 20 phone calls. So even though I was a top converter and I could convert a lot of leads, what I've found is I'm like, I have to freaking get creative here. I have to figure something out. I have to learn something that I haven't learned before because I'm slipping. There's people motivated, but they don't have equity, and I need equity to make a wholesale fee, or I need equity to do fix and flip. So I started doing research, and I spent a lot of time and energy figuring out creative financing and started doing deals, and my conversion rate 4x'd. It was like out of my existing leads, I would take 20 phone calls, and out of those 20 phone calls, I would probably get 3 wholesale deals. And then all of the sudden, because I understood subject to creative finance, lease options and wraps and all the things you need to understand in creative finance, I got my lead flow up to, or my deal flow to 12 out of 20 phone calls I was converting.
That's crazy.
But guess what? The corporation the franchise owner they don't want you doing creative financing.
Why is that? Why they only want you to be a one-trick pony? Why is that?
They make money on they get royalty on every deal that I do. So how do they get royalty on a rental? How do they get royalty on my cash flow? They want chunks of money on wholesale fees and fixing and flipping. That's where they make their money, on your royalties on fix and flip and wholesale. So because I can wholesale subject to as well, and they're fine with that. Like I'll subject to I'll wholesale a subject to deal all day long. But when I start taking those deals down in my rental portfolio, they are not a fan of that. And so it became an issue. And then I went on the Steve Trang show a year and a half ago, and they got mad that I was on Steve Trang's show. So they sent me a termination agreement.
Man, that's crazy. And you the number 3, and they tried to carry you like that.
I was one of the head guys of the marketing department. I was flying out to Dallas to make decisions for all the marketing channels for all of the United States. Like I had direct communication with the CEO, direct communication with the attorneys. Out of 1,100 franchises, I probably was talking to the corporation more than most people. And that's just what they do. If you look at Mike Hambright, Mike Hambright?
Yeah.
Mike Hambright has the same story.
I forgot his name's podcast, but when I first started up, I watched his podcast.
Yeah, Investor Fuel or
Flip something.
Flip Nerd.
Yeah, Flip Nerd. There you go. I remember that. Yep.
So Mike Hambright and I are friends. We have the same story. He was a franchise owner, and then when he started trying to do extra things, they shut him down and they told him they're going to cancel his franchise. So instead of me letting them cancel my franchise, I just sold my franchise, got out, and then just went and built my business. And it's been, a couple of years since that happened. But dude, I had to go out and learn. I was lucky enough to be friends with like Carlos and Sal and Steve Trang and Jamil all before all of this. And so when I went out on my own, I had to go sit down with these guys in their offices and say, man, I'm doing wholesale deals, I'm converting, but I don't know how to do marketing.
Right.
I've been paying a corporation to do all my marketing for me. And when I was making decisions for the corporation, I was making decisions on what the direct mail looked like, but I didn't quite understand, cold calling and texting and all that kind of stuff. So I had to start from scratch. And I'm so lucky to have guys like Carlos and Sal, guys like you, guys like Max Maxwell, that they showed me the game, even though I already knew how to convert and I already knew how to make money. And I was fixing and flipping and wholesaling and building my rental portfolio. I had to start from scratch in terms of the lead generation.
And that's no tough task, right? Getting that stuff going, because you can easily fall down a rabbit hole and have $5,000 a month in subscriptions, right? So to have someone to consult with you and you can call them up and say, "This is what you gotta do. This is what you gotta do." Man, that's a blessing. You know, I always respected you guys out of Arizona because it's almost like you guys signed some type of non-compete clause with each other where everybody's in this one melting pot and you guys are working together. And honestly, I can't find that out here where I'm at. Like, I can't find it nowhere but from
Well,
there.
I think guys like you will create it, right? Like I look because this pops up all the time. People talking about the Phoenix mentality, and I'm lucky to be part of that Phoenix crew. But I look at where it came from, and it came from guys like Steve Trang, guys like Brent Daniels, guys like Carlos and Sal, getting to a high level and realizing that when you get higher, it gets lonely, right?
Right.
So they realized, like, why don't we start doing deals together? Why don't we do fix and flips together? And they created this like mentality of like, we can achieve way more together. And they proved that there were more results. And because they saw the fruits of their labor, it just spread like wildfire. And that's kind of the mentality in Phoenix is like, we can go way further. We can do way more deals together. And so guys like you, Antoine, in your area, like what you're doing and your drip event and your podcast and your social media and what you're doing, it will completely catch on in your area to a point where like you're the Brent Daniels of your area where everybody comes to you and is like, Antoine, let's do deals together. I'm sure you have that already.
Right. And I'm in the process of actually formalizing
Right.
JVs and, you know, having that way structured.
Right. And
so many people approach me about it, but I'm not organized yet.
You see what Max is doing with his office?
Oh yeah. I was one of the first people that was at that office, and it was just a blank piece of paper, and we talked about it. And
I think that's such a
bro, do it.
Like, that's taking it to like a whole other level, you know?
Right. I agree.
How close are you to him?
Say that again.
How close are you to him?
That's my brother, man. You know, that's my brother.
No, I mean like proximity.
Oh, well, we're about 5.5 hours if I drove. About 45-minute flight if I flew.
Yeah, I know how close you guys are. That's without a question. I look at the East Coast, and I know you guys look at do you consider yourself East Coast? Do you consider yourself like Midwest?
East Coast.
Okay, so
East Coast. I don't know about the Midwest.
So everything I look at, this is the way people from the West look at everything. So we take Texas, and we say everything west of Texas we just call the West Coast. Everything east of that we just say the East Coast. So people are like, no, I'm in the Midwest. I'm like, okay, but you're east of Texas. That's east to me. You know what I'm saying? So
right. I got what you're saying. No, yeah. I always call myself East Coast. They call it what's another word? Eastern Seaboard, Atlantic Seaboard. Like there's different ways to call it, but East Coast.
Yeah. So all these creative structures, I don't think like going into your main question. Here was your main question. Your main question was like, what are you doing? What's your plan there? So I realized that I don't have to change anything in my structure of marketing, right? So anybody that's a wholesaler right now, you already have subject to and seller finance leads coming in your channel. You just don't know how to convert them.
Right.
That's all it comes down to. You don't have to go out and do now. You could go out and specifically focus on expired listings because expired listings are like somebody didn't have enough equity or maybe they wanted too much money for their house and so the real estate agent couldn't sell that property. The house I live in right here, like this is my house. I bought this house subject to from an expired listing. It was an agent that couldn't sell the house because the seller didn't have any equity, but he had a 3.2% interest rate in a $500,000 home. It was like, okay, you're telling me all I have to do is take over the payments and that $500,000 home is mine? Done, right? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Is like there's a lot of people watching your show that are still renting their own property, right? And like I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, how much money are you paying in rent? And people say 12, 13, 1,400 bucks. I'm like, you could own your own property with no qualification, a lot of times no money down, and just take over somebody else's mortgage and become the owner of that property. And now your rent payment is paying down your own asset. Like there's nothing stopping you from getting into your own property and living in your own house. So a lot of wholesalers are, basically we're CEOs of our own business. So we have horrible qualification for going out and getting a mortgage.
Oh, I know.
Right? Like I was talking to an agent the other day. She made $500,000 last year in 2019, and she claimed only $40,000 on her taxes as actual income. She wrote everything else off. So she's like, yeah, there's no way I could ever afford the house I'm living in right now. Like in terms of getting a bank from Chase or a loan from Chase or Bank of America, whatever. But she lives in a house she bought seller finance. Meanwhile, she's writing off her taxes and she's living the way she should live as an entrepreneur. But we get penalized as entrepreneurs not being able to buy our own houses because we want to write off our taxes, not pay all this freaking money to the government. Meanwhile, you need to pay all this money to the government to get a qualification.
I never understood that. I always thought that they should come, the federal government should come out with a special loan product specifically for the small business entrepreneurs that's going to encourage them to hire more people and produce more for the economy. I think that, Fannie Mae or one of them agencies should put some type of a loan product out. But who am I to suggest?
I mean, I like it because you could produce it based on income, not net profit, right? So like you can still let that business owner write off all these things on his taxes, but still show, hey, this guy generated $500,000 in gross profit. He should be qualified for a $300,000 house. Let's qualify him, right?
Right.
So look at Ani. Ani, what market are you in? Ani's one of my students. He just popped in. Ani, what market are you in? I think he's East Coast. But
yeah, I've been saying that a lot. I said it must be somebody out here teaching people this because they be posting this stuff everywhere.
Me teaching people. Because like actually where this lead came from, the house I live in, this came from a real estate agent that I send those DMs to real estate agents or email marketing to agents. And I'm like, hey, I buy houses with no equity. So if you have a hard time, yeah, look at this. Ahmed Helmi, one of your.
Post it up on the screen so we can talk about this. Like, do you mind talking about this?
Oh yeah, for sure. So this is Ani. He's one of my students. This is something I call the Pace method. The Pace method. Pace is an acronym for purchasing assets for cash flow and equity. That's what Pace method stands for. Okay. So I reach out to real estate agents and I say, hey, send me any leads that have little or no equity or leads where the seller wants more than you'll pay.
Hold on. Let's stop. You turn your name into an acronym?
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah,
man, you crazy.
When I was putting it together, somebody's like, well, what do you do? Like, let's come up with a name for your program. What do you do? And I was like, well, I buy properties so I can get cash flow and I can build equity. And somebody's like, that sounds a lot like purchasing assets for cash flow and equity. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my name. Damn, let's do it. So yeah, it was really good. So anyway, so we teach real estate. We teach my students how to go get free leads and free deals without spending any money on marketing. Number one, going to wholesalers and saying, hey, I know how to buy creative finance deals. If you have a lead that has no equity, send it to me. I will work the lead. I will close the seller. I'll figure out how to fund it and do all that stuff. And when I get that lead closed, I'll cut you a check as a referral fee, which basically I'm turning your trash into cash. And it catches on like wildfire because you have wholesalers that are like, wait a minute, I literally have like 3,000 leads in my Podio that I couldn't do anything with. You're telling me you will work my leads for me. You will call the seller. You will negotiate on terms. And when you actually go and close escrow on it, you'll cut me a check.
It's brilliant, man. You can't get mad at that one. It's called innovation. And that's why I respect guys like yourself, man. You just stepping outside the box and providing value like a magician. I had Mark. Mark Evans?
Oh, I love, dude. He's one of my favorite people.
I had him on about a few weeks ago. His book, Magician versus Mule, man. And he's been talking about that philosophy for a while, and that's what kind of like me pivoting to like outsourcing all my stuff with VAs, man. Instead of trying to do everything myself and work hard, I be started integrating and becoming a magician. And that's really some power stuff he's teaching.
I would say Mark Evans. So I've got Mark Evans on speed dial. He's I feel like in my like top 3 or 4 people that have impacted my life in the last couple of years, Mark Evans is in the top 3 or 4 people.
I agree, man. I agree.
Very smart guy. He does not get enough credit. Like, I know in certain circles, Mark Evans is like the guy, but then there's other circles, people are like, who's Mark Evans? I think because Mark won't travel, right? You won't get Mark to go out to an event. He's like, I'll do it digitally with you, but I'm not coming to an event. You know, so he limits somewhat of his exposure. But Mark is incredibly intelligent. One of the things I learned to do a year ago, Mark taught me, and it didn't catch on and like really sink in until like 6 months later. And I realized that Mark had taught me $1 million lesson like 6 months after he taught it to me. He's so smart that he's planting seeds in my brain that will sprout like 6 months later. He's so good.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see. So Grace Joe, she's in my Facebook group. She's a sweetheart. She's very active. She's very, very good. I appreciate you. What there's a couple questions in here.
Yeah, I'm about to get to the questions right now.
Where did Ani say he's at? I can't remember where Ani's at in.
I think he said something Atlanta.
Oh, he's in Atlanta. Okay.
I think he said Atlanta. I could be mistaken. No,
yeah, it's like if you guys aren't following Ani on Instagram, like Ani does a little morning routine or maybe daily routine where he goes on there and just talks and gives a tip. He's like such a soothing personality. I actually enjoy watching him.
Here's some questions right here. For some reason, StreamYard don't pick up all the questions. I literally got to go on my phone and check. If you have a property that has no cash flow but has only 15 years left on it, do you recommend still taking it subject to then wrapping it?
Yeah, because think about it. Well, number one, meet Kaifu. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. A lot of times people miss out on whether they think it's going to cash flow or not, right? So depending on your exit strategy, if you buy a property subject to and you rent it out and it doesn't have equity, it doesn't have cash flow. A lot of times if you buy it subject to, but you take it to a lease option or you take it to a wrap, you can get more money than the rent rates in that area for a wrap or for a lease option, typically about $200 more per house. So I would say highly likely if you're pulling rental comps, you're missing that little key there is that you probably do cash flow on this deal that you're talking about. Maybe this is a hypothetical, but I would look at that, number one. Number two, think about this. If you buy it subject to and you sell it on a wrap to the end buyer, what I call in my program, the homestead buyer, you sell it to the homestead buyer, 15 years goes by, they're paying down that mortgage for you, or they're paying down that mortgage the last 15 years because you can create a 30-year note. You can create a 30-year mortgage with them. Now for 15 years, you're the one collecting the full payment. So absolutely, I would take that deal. Because what we're talking about here is we're not talking, what I teach people is you need to make today money, absolutely. But if you're not making tomorrow money, then you're missing out. So this is a deal, meet that you can make today money and you can make tomorrow money for a very long time.
I agree.
LaShawn says, "Hey, take a freaking break." LaShawn's in my program as well. I love her. I just spent a bunch of time with her. Let's see, Pace, have you fared well with condos using creative financing? And generally, what is the risk of loan acceleration? So what Ahmed is talking about on loan acceleration is what is called a due on sale clause that literally every mortgage in the country has a due on sale clause inside of it. That's also called a loan acceleration. So condos are challenging. We have a handful of condos, but condos are challenging based on one thing. The thing that you're challenged on is the HOA or the association fees. A lot of times on condos will kill the cash flow. So what you do is you don't turn those into rentals. You turn those into wraps where you have an end buyer move in there, and the end buyer is typically willing to pay for those higher association dues because you finance them the house. They don't have to go out and get their own financing at any point. So loan acceleration, due on sale clause. I'm not going to be one of those guys that tells you that due on sale clause doesn't happen because I have had the due on sale clause happen to me. I know exactly how to get rid of it. And also, this is kind of an interesting thing. I'm part owner in a company called Equity Assurance, where that company, we provide basically insurance against the due on sale clause. So let's say Antoine the due on sale clause gets called. The bank finds out you transferred ownership. The bank calls you, the new owner, and says, we're foreclosing on you because you're not the person we originally financed, and we're going to call the note due. That's the acceleration of the loan.
Right.
What our company will do is we will negotiate with the bank on your behalf, and if we fail, we'll just refinance the mortgage out with the exact same terms, and then the payment that you make every month is no longer going to the mortgage company, it's going to us. Does that make sense?
Awesome.
So
awesome. That's smart, man. Like I said, thinking outside the box, that's real smart.
Yeah, I have zero worry about the due on sale clause. We know how to handle it. And worst case scenario, I end up refinancing it out, and then you just pay us a monthly bill, and guess what? We make interest. We make money on the money. It's a win-win for everybody.
So answer me this: what's your strategy post COVID? Like, I know you're gonna have a whole bunch of qualified leads that's behind on their mortgage that took some type of forbearance. Like, what are some game plans that you're working with your team to ensure that you can take down as many deals as possible from a liquidity standpoint?
So the whole COVID thing just solidified in my mind why I don't like rentals. Primarily, my exit strategy is lease options or wraps. And the reason for that is a lease option buyer, or what a lot of people call them, is a tenant buyer. The reason it's called a tenant buyer, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, is that they are currently a tenant, but at some point they might be the buyer, right? They have a lease with you, which is one document, and that could be 5-year lease. And then they have an option contract with you that says they have 5 years to go get their own loan and buy the house from you. So those lease option buyers typically are going to treat the house way more, and they give you an option fee up front of like $7,500. So they're less willing to walk away from that $7,500 than a renter. The only 2 properties I had issues with in COVID, with people not making payments to me, were renters. My wraps, my lease options, not a single issue at all. Everybody pays. So renters are just typically a little bit, I hate to say this because I've been a renter in my life, so I'm not saying this generally, but overall on rentals, you're going to have a lot more problems because renters are pains in the ass, right? So lease options, I make a little bit more money on cash flow. That's a better exit in a COVID situation. Lease options and wraps, because you are financing somebody and they're bringing in a larger amount of money as a down payment to secure your situation. So let's say COVID comes back in the fall, which a lot of people are worried about, right? And let's say that a lot of my tenant buyers default. Pretty simple for me. I evict them, right? And we have been able to evict them. We just get the constable involved. And I'll if you guys follow my Instagram, you'll see me. We evicted one of our tenants that said, you can't evict me because COVID law will prevent you. And we proved them wrong. So we did evict them. We turned around, got another lease option. That was a rental. I said, I don't want to do any more rentals. So we turned around, put that into a lease option. We got a $7,500 option fee that covered all of our cost of eviction and cleaning up the property and all that kind of stuff. So exit strategy wise, if you use lease options and wraps, you're typically a lot more protected because people are putting money down. Now on the acquisition side, you're going to run into a tremendous amount of foreclosures over the next 24, 36 months. The challenge with the foreclosures coming down the line are going to be that there's mortgage forbearance and there's foreclosure forbearance as well, where they'll pause the foreclosure for an extended amount of time. So we don't quite have all the answers on it, but we are seeing people that go, I'm not going to get foreclosed on, right? I have a door knocking team, by the way, guys. We do a lot of door knocking. So I have a door knocking team that now we're running into sellers that are saying, well, you know what? I'm not really worried about getting foreclosed on because COVID's going to push back my foreclosure. I'm not really worried, right? So we're still learning the data. It's still fresh. On the acquisition side, I feel like we have more leads. And I think, Antoine, you're probably in the same situation. You probably have more leads in the last 60 days than you really ever have, right?
Oh, man. We get shit ton of leads, and most of it is via text messaging.
Really?
Yeah, text messaging on fire. It's crazy.
Yeah, I would say so. Yesterday we received my team sends me a text message because I don't like going to Podio. That's my partner's job. My partner sent me I get a text message every morning from my team. And so they sent me a text and they said, we got 20 leads yesterday. So 20 qualified leads, right? Not crap leads, whatever. These are qualified leads. We got 20 leads yesterday. 18 of them were text messages. 2 of them were for cold calls. Meanwhile, I have like 7 cold callers, I think, something like that. So it's like 7 cold callers only produce 2 leads. These are good cold callers. There's other days where they produce 10, produce 12. But yesterday, we got 2 leads out of phone call and 18 out of text. And then out of those 18 text messages, we got a contract signed that day. Like, that's what's cool about texting, is that it happens right away.
Yeah, my VA, she's one of my acquisition people. She called me last night and said we might have 3 people signing between last night and today. So I haven't checked in with her so far. But hopefully, wish me luck. We get these 3 deals locked up.
Antoine, from a guy that's coaching like you are, and a guy that I respect at a high level, what do you think? You're talking about, like, here we are, you and I talking up we talk about locking up deals as if it's like eating breakfast, right? It's like so easy for us to lock up deals, because you get to that point where it's like locking up a deal is like turning on a light switch for us, right?
Right.
What would you say, like, with the students and the people you talk to, what would you say are like the top 1 or 2 reasons why people haven't gotten their first deal or they haven't been able to scale? Just in your experience. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but because I don't want to pigeonhole any of the audience, but I want to know from your experience what you're seeing, why people are struggling.
They're not serious. They're inconsistent. And, I sold hundreds of courses. I sold hundreds of VAs. I helped hundreds of, matter of fact, I think we scaled up to thousands now. I can say thousands of people. And the number one common denominator to separate a person who did a deal, who didn't do a deal, was they're not 100% committed to real estate. I mean, not all in. So they make excuses of, my job, my wife, my children, and they can't focus and get tunnel vision. Outside of that, the next thing I see is the inability to know how to market. They don't know the seller profile. They don't know who they should be marketing to, and they just all over the place, just calling anybody, and they just talking to a whole lot of dead leads. So them are 2 top things.
That's good. I agree. I agreed 100% on the first one. The second one, I've actually, like, when I ask other people that question, like, other people in the industry, because I am curious, right? Like, you have students, I have students, right? We're all teaching and helping people. Because the reason why, and I'm learning this, reason why we end up helping and coaching people is because it gets to a point when you're doing so many contracts, everybody calls you, right? Everybody reaches out to you. And ultimately you're like, I have to do this in an organized format or else I'm going to fail people, right? So a mentorship or a coaching program or all that kind of stuff is the way to formalize that and make sure that as many people get the help and then charging for it is making sure that people are essentially ready, right? You want to fill people that are ready and not. So I look at that and I talk to other people that are in the game, and I have not heard somebody say that. That is absolutely true, because one day I'm talking to a student, and I think I'm doing some of my students a disservice, because what happens is I'll teach them lead generation on how to go to probate attorneys on this coming Wednesday. I'm actually bringing in a probate attorney into my mentorship to go through how to get probate attorneys to work with you and send you leads. And then last week I talked about driving for dollars. And so I look at that and I'm like, I wonder if I'm doing my people a disservice, because I might be having them do the squirrel effect where they're like going every single direction. Okay, well, Pace told me to go do driving for dollars. Now he's bringing in a probate attorney. It's like you almost
you gotta be. You seen the movie Karate Kid?
Oh yeah.
You got to wax on, wax off. You got to teach them that. That's it. Because if you show them every other little trick, they're gonna be all over the place, man. They're gonna be mad. You gotta understand, as a leader and an entrepreneur, your mind runs probably at 1 terabyte speed per second. Everybody who's coming in can't process what we process. So you literally gotta, spoon feed them and say, okay, here's this next. Even if they feel like, hey, yeah, I'm ready to go do this. No. Let's continue to work on this. And eventually they're going to become a master at that one particular niche.
Right. I think what I'm learning right now is I've got some really good students in the group across the country who are actively doing a lot of deals. And so what I'm doing is I'm grouping some of my students with them so they have a localized guy to help them.
Right. That's smart.
But what I did is I started adding a little bit more calls on a weekly basis to say, okay, well, this day we're focusing on this. So if you're not ready for this, don't tune into this. It'll be recorded. You can come back to it later. Tomorrow we're going to talk about this. And so I'm trying to segregate, because I think that's right. I think a lot of people that are listening right now, if I'm starting out and I've never gotten a deal, it doesn't matter the lead source. It's almost like go pick one lead source and focus on that, tunnel vision on that until you get a deal. Do proof of concept and then do it again, do it again, do it again, and then think about going to a second lead source, right?
Right. Because what happens is, once you get that first lead source and you start locking deals up, you become confident. You know what it looks like. You know the data. You know your KPIs. You know your conversion rates. And then as you need to, scale, the reason why you get more lead source because you're trying to scale to get more deal flow. Then you jump over to the other lead source to complement the lead source you already conquered. Most people start out, they have all these softwares in their disposal. They sign up for everything and they wonder why they can't convert on nothing because they haven't mastered one particular thing thus far.
Yeah, I tell a lot of my students that are starting out, I go, okay, tell me, what are you spending money on right now on subscriptions? And then, like, I had a guy a couple of weeks ago, he's like, I think my monthly budget right now is $1,500 in like Podio and alltheleads.com and this, that, and the other, all these lead sources. And I'm like, great, how many deals are you doing a month? He says, 0. And I'm like, okay, then that should be your budget. Let's go figure out, delete everything, get rid of everything, go back to the basics. Let's go figure out one thing that doesn't cost you money to go get leads. And I would say there's probably 20 or more ways to get leads and deals without spending any money for your first deal. So if you have no money, don't get discouraged. Just focus on one of those 20. Don't focus on all 20. Go focus on one of the 20. Yeah, I love that. That's actually a really good answer. It's like the squirrel. Anything that's shiny, I'm running after it.
Right, and I think that's what most people struggle with, and eventually they burn out, they run out of money, and they walk away. But if you can show them, okay, this is how you can do it without spending a lot of money, or if you're on a compressed budget, then go down this road. Now, what we're starting to do, with our VA company, is we're starting to offer extra training that focus on specific areas in your business, such as lead management, such as SMS manager. But we're telling people that already signed up with our company, hey, this may not be for you right now, but if it is for you, come sign up and join the class and learn as much as you want to learn. It's for free. It's on us, and people love it. People love digesting content in bite-sized ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, just to jump on that, so I would say both your reasons you just said right there are really, really good. The second one, I haven't put as much thought to it as I should, but another one like I think about is people look at guys like you, guys like me, guys like Carlos Sal, Jamil, Brent Daniels, Steve Trang doing all these deals on the stages, doing all that kind of stuff, and they think like, oh, that takes 6 months or that takes 12 months. And it's like, no, like, there was literally 2 years before we even had any sort of opportunity that we were, like you said, Antoine, we were doing the wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. Yeah. And people don't want to go through that process because they think it should be easier, or maybe somebody told them it was easier. Like anytime you're going to make millions of dollars and build legacy wealth, it's not going to be easy. Right? It's not going to be easy. It's just like anything else worthwhile. It's not going to be easy. The difference is this. This is, I think, the biggest difference that you can make in your business. Not only embrace the hard parts, but learn to love them and like learn to be like, I absolutely love doing these parts. Like for me, I love going on buy appointments. So even right now, my team is locking up deals. I got a text message right now. Tino on my team says, hey, you got a second to talk about a deal in California? It's on the high end, but we have it at we have 99% locked up, but we need help doing, it's a creative finance deal. So my team is out locking up deals. But this morning I woke up and I sent the team a text. I go, guys, when can I go on another appointment? I need to be out in front of a seller. Because years ago, I learned to love going through the process, right? Other people get anxiety and they feel like scared to do that. I just learned to figure out certain parts of the business that I loved that like actually hit me in my personality, and I focused on those parts, and then I hired everything else out, right? So find the parts you love. How does your personality work? And if you haven't read, by the way, Gracie Joe or Grace Joe, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. We have spoken on the phone. I suggested to her that she should go read Rocket Fuel to figure out, are you an integrator or are you a visionary? What about you, Antoine? Are you consider yourself more of a I already know the answer, but do you consider yourself
I'm a visionary. I'm good at coming up with things and then sourcing the talent to put people in place to shine. So I think I'm a visionary.
100% you're a visionary. I mean, I watch what you're doing. You're just because you're a visionary doesn't mean you don't have integrator qualities. It's just, what do you naturally wake up in the morning and want to do? Do you want to be an integrator? Hell no. Do you want to be a visionary? Yes. And for people, here's another thing, just real quick. I know I'm belaboring this point a little bit, but so many people getting into wholesale think that they have to be a closer, right? Like we've got the closer Olympics, which I'm really excited about, by the way, but like you got the closer Olympics, closer. Everything's about closing. But nobody highlights the integrator enough to show that without the integrator, I didn't have an appointment to go close. Right. So like what I tell people in my business, I might be the face of my operation, but Cody, my integrator, is the backbone of my operation.
Right.
And you don't see him because he's in the behind the scenes, but without my backbone, I fall apart.
That's typically how it always goes, you know. Like most people, like even with Steve Train, that's Max. With Carlos, that's definitely Sal. Even though I haven't personally talked to them, but I see him, you know. You can see that at a difference that you need. It's like night and day. You can't have one without the other.
No, 100%. And the people that are struggling, they're like, well, I'm doing 1 or 2 deals and I can't get consistent. It's because you're wearing too many hats. Like when you start out, you have to wear those hats, right? So read Rocket Fuel, and it talks about how when you start a business, you have to wear all the hats. And as you scale, you take the hats off that you're not good at and you give to other people, essentially, right? You know the drill. So many people are keeping all the hats, and that those hats are weighing down on you and not allowing you to stand up tall and grow into the person you need to be. So like in your business, Antoine, who's your, I already know the answer to this too, because essentially your VAs are primarily your integrators, but who would you say is the main integrator in your business?
It's 2 people, Janice and Darlene.
Love it. And they do basically everything that your personality doesn't want to do.
Yes. Like anything that I vocalize and can articulate in a way they understand, they take that and package it and present it to whoever they got to present it to, whether it's the wholesaler business, the digital product business, whatever it is, they help me with. So
you got a really good question down here from George S. Crady Jr. You might want to jump on. Probably.
How do I start collecting KPIs, and what type of KPIs are important? You want to answer that, Pace? Or you want me to answer that?
I think you probably know KPIs way better than I do.
Yeah, so KPI guys, if you're watching this, key performance indicators. I run my business with them. You can start collecting KPIs by just creating trackers, accountability trackers for everybody. So for your cold callers, it might be, okay, after you finish your shift, here are some numbers that I need you to report to me after you finish your shift. From your office manager, I need to know where we at on a day-by-day basis when it comes to labor and our break-even analysis. Everybody on here should have a break-even analysis to determine how much money you got to clear every month just to pay the bare minimum, such as VAs, your marketing, any expenses that you need to keep the doors open. And then after that, you want to look at your forecast. Most people don't talk about this, but I practice this. It's called projected forecast. How much money that you can see yourself making, or how much production do you need to get to see yourself making money? Now let's go back to my VA company. We measure VAs based on quarters. So within quarter number 1, I think that we might need well over 300 VAs to satisfy quarter number 1. And how do I know that? Based off inquiries, based off purchasing, based off sales, based off training, and I'm dictating to my VA, my recruiters, to say, hey, I need you to double up on interviews. I need you to double up on applications in order to get there. So you can do the same thing with wholesaling. You can look and say, if I want to get to 5 deals a month, if you're closing, let's say for example, you're closing 1 out of 12 deals, you'll work backwards and say, okay, well, how many cold calls or how many texts I need to get an appointment? You know what I mean? And then once you figure that out, then you know your close ratio. So if you want to get to 5 deals, you have to probably get to 80 appointments a month just to get to 5 deals. And that's just like if you knew. But if you're like Pace and you took this Sandler's training that no one's talking about, but Pace and Steve and them over there, then your close ratio may be a little higher. But that's some of the stuff that you can measure as KPIs. There's a whole lot more, but it would probably take about an hour to explain. But that's definitely 30,000 foot overview.
So there's really 3 KPIs that I personally care about. So my business partners, or I'm sorry, my one business partner, Cody, he tracks way more KPIs. He's in Podio. He tracks all sorts of stuff, right? Like he'll even track a KPI based on how long our escrows are taking, those types of things.
Right.
But for me, on a high level, I care about cost per contract is probably my most important thing, because cost per contract, what it does is cost per contract takes my burn rate, which is what Antoine was talking about, right? What's your total cost of your business, like your break even calculation? I call that my burn rate. So my burn rate is how fast I'm burning money, right? So I put, let's say I put $10,000 into my business. I've got an office, insurance, VAs, pulling lists, skip tracing, all that stuff. So my burn rate's 10 grand. So if I get one contract after spending $10,000, that means my cost per contract is $10,000. That's a pretty big problem. So our cost per contract, depending on the month and the time of year, because December and November kind of slow down. Summertime in Arizona like ramps up like crazy. It's for us, wholesaling is somewhat seasonal. There is a little bit of lulls. So depending on the time of year, we're between $700 and $900 per contract. So that's like, for me, that's the number one thing for me to look at is what's my cost per contract, my total cost, even my commissions to my sales. Literally every check I write down to the stick of gum is part of my burn rate in my month. And then I divide that by how many contracts I got, and that's my cost per contract. The next KPI I look at is how many leads I'm getting on a monthly basis from each channel. So it'd be like door knocking, cold calling, and text messaging. How many qualified leads am I getting from those channels? That is one KPI, is how many leads I'm getting. Then the final KPI that I personally care about is how each one of those channels is converting. So if it comes in as a qualified lead, we are converting, our cold calls are converting between 35 and 40 leads per contract. On a text message campaign, it's between 40 and 45, depending on the time of the year, each lead converts to a contract. So now, with that information, what Antoine's saying is you can now take that information and go, okay, so I need 45 leads to get one contract from text messages. And then you got to go create another KPI that says, how many text messages do I need to create 45 leads?
Exactly.
Right. So those are the KPIs I primarily focus on, because then at the end of the month, I can look at those 3 things and I can basically tell you the pulse of my business.
Man, that's just the way everything's set up. And most people, they be in this business about 3-4 years before they realize that these are some metrics that you should be tracking, so you can properly make educated decisions about how much money you want to deploy into marketing, what you may need to cut back on, how many more people you may need to hire in the next quarter. It's forecasting is everything if you know how to do it effectively.
What was interesting is last month we generated 100 more leads than normal because of the COVID thing. Like more people are home, more people are scared of what's going on in the market. So we generated more leads our exact ad spend. But guess what? We actually didn't convert any more deals. We got the same amount of deals on a monthly basis, but so our conversion rate went down because we got more leads, but our contract stayed the same. So what I told Cody is I said, hey, either A, or this kind of opens up conversations with your partners. Is you go, okay, why is that the case? Either A, people are willing to talk to us because they're home, or B, we just aren't doing a good enough job converting these leads.
Right.
And so we did two things. I told Cody to take 25% out of our budget for marketing, because if we're going to get more leads regardless, because COVID's going on, then take the cost per lead or the cost of advertising down 25%. We generate the same amount of leads we were generating a couple months ago. And then the second thing I did is I went into my sales department and we created a COVID script that would talk to sellers specifically about COVID versus what we were talking about before. And so we won't find out the results of that until basically the first week of June, when we go back and pull our KPIs and we have our partnership.
Here's what my hypothesis is for you, right? And for everybody. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. We are at a space right now where most people don't see the reality of the situation just yet. Right. Most folks that's in the middle class, this whole middle class thing, they living off their credit cards right now, right?
Right.
They are tapping into their home equity lines that they took, they had opened up a few years ago. Now they tap into it, right?
Right.
And they are borrowing against their 401k. So they floating themselves, hoping that eventually they can get back to work. In the process, they might let a few bills go, car note, mortgage, whatever. You won't see these leads converting until shit get real to them, where they know there ain't no way out of this.
Right.
So I think that even talking to my team, we have to create a more longer follow-up sequence to know that this is like building a dam right now, and eventually it's going to flow over to deals and leads. And right now that's what you're doing. You're building a dam, and you gotta let it grow. And then probably November, when shit get real, when the fat man comes, because no one beats the fat man. The fat man is Santa Claus. Right. People are gonna get desperate. They're gonna want to sell their houses. They're gonna want to walk away. And I think honestly that's when you're gonna see them leads starting to convert like that. That's just my opinion.
I agree. And so we're in this like weird little area right now where it's like we're getting more leads, but we're converting at the same. So we also, this is what I talked to my sales manager, Tino. I obviously had the conversation. I go, man, we had 100 extra leads, but we didn't get any more deals. Our KPIs tell us that we absolutely should have had 3 or 4 more contracts out of those lead flow. What happened? His feedback was this. He said, we need to hire another salesperson because you generated more leads. We can't follow up with all these leads. And I'm
right. The quality went down. Father.
Right. I go, interesting. So you guys are rushing through conversations to handle all the leads, but you're not actually getting to all of them. So I totally get that what we had to do is make an adjustment. I didn't want to hire another acquisition person. For me personally, I don't want to be, and no offense to Carlos and Sal, but like Carlos and Sal, their business is 3 times my size in terms of wholesale. That is not what my flavor is, right? Like Antoine, you and I could go into the same steak restaurant and order completely 2 different meals, right? So it doesn't mean that restaurant's not great. It just means that we want 2 different things. So for me, I primarily want to keep my wholesale business doing what it's doing. I don't want to expand or contract. What I want to get out of my wholesale business is the ability to build my rental portfolio from those leads. And that's where I want to focus more of my time and energy.
Right. And that's even for us, like, we starting to pivot to doing more multifamily marketing. And I always tell people, I'm not your 30, 40 a month deal guy. That's what I don't want for myself. That's a big beast to handle. That's a big machine to kind of like deal with on a monthly basis. And if you had 1 or 2 bad months, man, what that can be. You can be out of business. Yeah,
I know
you can be hurt to be out of business. So.
There's a lot of guys here in Phoenix that let go of their acquisition managers when COVID hit because they were afraid of the overhead. We actually hired people during COVID because we started doing more fix and flips, and we decided, hey, I need another construction manager. Like I don't have less people. I have more people going through COVID because my operation was somewhat streamlined before we went into COVID.
See, you kind of think like me. I hired 4 people in the last 60 days, right, for myself personally. And the reason is, correct me if I'm wrong, as people got laid off, there's an opportunity to go recruit some of the better people.
Yes, and they're been trained.
Yeah.
Like my competition trained my new construction manager was already trained by somebody else.
Exactly. And that was my reason for hiring it. I might not see a return on my investment for a while, but I'm cool with that. I can live with that.
Right. I mean, are they offloading things off your plate?
Oh, yeah. Things are a lot easier.
I mean, I hired a VA a couple months ago, specifically just to take, like, I was, this is interesting going back into, doing VA stuff, because this is kind of like your bread and butter and what I think you like to talk about the most, which I like to talk about too, because I've seen the fruits of like what you're teaching and what you're talking about. But what I did is, like, once a week, I would sit down early Sunday morning and I would make a list of all the stuff I was doing that I didn't want to do. And that's what I have my VA do. Right. So like, I don't need to go through all of it specifically, but I was basically going through and I was like, I don't want to do this. 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 And I created a full-time position. And my VA is so excited about doing all of those jobs every single week that I'm like, how is a human being excited about doing the stuff I hate doing?
Man, you gotta understand the leverage that we have. The value of the dollar compared to the peso. What we paying them, that's great money. That's like somebody paying you $100K, to do some things. So they happy. A lot of VAs I know, they got their own houses, they got cars, they live a good life. They go to the nail shop, they go to the spas. Like, VAs are humans. Most of my VAs, they have college degrees. I don't have a college degree, but most of them, they have accounting degrees. They have all these types of degrees. So it's a blessing to be able to leverage that.
We're very, very lucky, bro. We're lucky to be in the position we're in.
I agree. So anything else you want to touch on or leave people with, any words of wisdom before we get you out of here? I know you got a busy day.
The only thing is, there's a question down here. Somebody asked, Denzel W said, how can I get into your course, Pace? I think it's sold out for the time being, but I would go to sub2.com. That's the cool thing, is like, you believe I own the domain sub2.
How you get that domain? You had to cough up a pretty penny.
It was not cheap, that's for sure. It took months to negotiate.
I told that to Max last week, Steve partner. I was like, how y'all get this Ruffles.com? You must have paid a pretty penny for that.
He did. I think he took a long time to negotiate. But so I got the domain sub2.com, subto.com. So if you guys are looking into getting into creative finance, either hit up one of my students, because obviously they're learning what to do. Hit up one of my students in your area, or go to sub2.com and sign up for the wait list. I don't think we're opening it up for another couple of weeks for another little group of people.
That's awesome, man. You're a blessing to the community. I respect you, your transparency, your willingness to give on a daily basis. Like, before you go, I seen you did a Facebook Live for 24 hours. What made you come up with something like that?
Honestly, it came from Max Maxwell giving me anxiety. It wasn't Max directly, but I was on Wholesale Hotline, one of the shows that we do. So it's Jamil and Brent. Jamil, Brent, and myself are all on Wholesale Hotline Monday nights at 5 p.m. So Max comes on, and Max has Tony Sr., right? Super good at creative financing.
Yeah.
So you've got me and Max there, and all of a sudden in the chat, because it's on StreamYard too. So in the chat on the side, I'm seeing all these questions about creative financing, and Brent and Jamil were like, Pace and Max, we don't want to answer any creative financing questions. This is Wholesale Hotline, right? So I had all this anxiety like building up during the show that I felt like, you know what? I feel like the people didn't get what they needed. So I decided to go all crazy, and I just stood in front of my laptop, no food, no water, nothing. And I just went live all day long, and we got 22,000 views in one day on that.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. It reminded me of this little off-topic. It reminded me of the episode of what's that, Scandal? I don't know if you watched that. My wife had me watch it. When the wife stood up in front of Congress and she did a filibuster for 24 hours straight to pass a law. So that's what I thought when I saying that.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it. I think it opened up a lot of people. I get DMs every day. People like, dude, I'm 4 hours into this live that you did. This is crazy. You did this. And I'm standing there all day. Like, I'm not eating. I'm not going to the bathroom. I'm literally standing there all day long.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. I went to the bathroom in an hour.
Yeah, it was good. And it was like, I honestly feel like I didn't even scratch the surface on creative financing in that live. That's what's cool about creative financing. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah, I'm going to be, actually I'm working on a 13-unit deal over in Cleveland. Someone reached out to me about to help them with, and I offered them creative financing. And that's what they wanted. So I literally, when I go up to them, I run my numbers and see what we can do to help them, and hopefully we can get it sold for them.
Bro, it's creative financing. In my personal opinion, obviously I'm biased, but in my personal opinion, creative financing will be what most wholesalers are spending half their time on over the next couple of years. Just because of changes in the market, and think about people who can't get a mortgage anymore because Chase and Bank of America and Wells Fargo are tightening lending laws. And how do those people get houses? Well, they don't. They go rent, or you can sell them a wrap that you bought subject to, and you can make money on a house that doesn't have any equity. That's the crazy thing about creative financing, is I can make more money on a creative financing structure than the wholesaler could have made at $100,000 cheaper price.
Right. That's what's attractive to me too. So, man, I appreciate the way you challenging all of us to level up. Far as like giving,
bro, I'm just trying to help you guys.
Even the other day, man, I did something real spontaneous. I gave away $1,000 in value for a stranger buying me a grill. And I could have bought a grill. Could have. I still ended up buying the grill, but ended up just taking the money and buying it too. But it was just something different to show people that, hey, when the opportunity presents itself, hop on it. You know what I mean? And,
I love it. Honestly, I'm just trying to catch up to a lot of you guys, and I appreciate you guys letting me socialize and hang out with you. I appreciate you as a friend, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys at Drip. So whenever you just shoot me a text and let me know.
Man, I'm gonna text you whenever we get the final okay from Governor Hogan, Mr. Hogan, to let us go and commingle with each other. Is on and popping.
I love it.
Someone said I want a second grill. No, I don't want a second grill, but I do want a coffee maker. I want a Cougar coffee maker. Send me $100 and I'll send you $1,000 in value. Give me a coffee maker. That's how I'm doing it right now. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I always love the guys out of Arizona. I'm gonna find my way out there within the next 6 months. When I do, you'll be the first person I call when that plane.
Let's hang out.
Okay, brother. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all, man. Thank you guys so much. If you want 1,000 leads, text 1,000 leads to 44222. If you're interested in a Pace course, go to subject2.com. He'll take care of you. If you want to learn more about virtual wholesaling, go to AntoineMCampbell.com/courses. We'll take great care of you. Tomorrow, I'm heading down to Texas. Goddamn, Waco, Texas. Dallas, Texas, somewhere down there. I don't know what Corey's going to be, but I'm bringing my guy, Corey Thompson, on the Nothing But Nuggets show. I call him the fucking Wild Wild West. That guy's wild and crazy, but I'm going to bring him on the show. We're going to talk real estate. We're going to talk the Guru Killer stuff. We're going to talk raps and subject to. We're going to talk about mobile homes, how you make money in mobile homes. We're going to talk about so much. Corey is a good guy. He's very transparent. Hopefully, when I launch this show officially on Apple and Spotify, that you get me up to #1. So we're going to be launching the show June 1st. June 1st, the show will be on every streaming podcast platform. I just want to get enough episodes on there so when you find out about it, you can binge watch. In the meantime, in the 20 time, I catch you guys later. Sacrifice now, ball forever. And remember to like and share this video. This is good golden content. Catch you guys later. Peace out.